afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our property technology webinar today. Thank you so much to all of you who are joining us. I know that there's a number of estate management and their teams here today, property developers, those of you in the tech industry. We're very, very happy to have you all here today. So the reason why Estate Living and our team are here to host this property technology is that we have really seen over the last year especially this digital divide, the need for digital communication, finding the right solution for your estate or your development, understanding what the solutions are out there, integrating your digital technology that you have at the moment. And you know, during the COVID, those folks that had some type of solution in place really saw the benefit of being able to communicate effectively and to get those urgent messages out. So we have come today together with a panel of experts that are going to each bring something unique to this webinar, and I really hope that you find the answers that you're looking for. I'm going to introduce the panel first. We are extremely grateful to have Liezl class here today. Liezl is the community manager at St. Francis Links. She's one of in the forefront of community spaces. She's a leader within the space. She's also the regional head of the RCC, or Residential Community Council, in her area. Liezl, I'm not going to give it all away. Maybe you can just quickly introduce yourself.
Hello, and thank you very much, Lou and the team. Thank you. Yes, I'm Liezl from the beautiful Eastern Cape, and thank you for this opportunity as well. We look forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
So thank you, Liezl. So once we've unpacked some of the issues, the real on-the-ground issues that are happening within residential community spaces, what happens every day, what are the solutions that need to be solved, we're very grateful to have Nicole here from EstateMate. Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Lou. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone. We're very excited to be joining this panel. I'm Nicole Hiestermann. I'm from EstateMate. We're just a communication and management tech company. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Nicole. So most of us, or those estates that are pretty existing at the moment, understand the value of access control. Access control is also plays a sort of a vital role when it comes into community management spaces and other forms of communication. So Ariel from at the Gate is with us today. Ariel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Lou, and the team also. Very excited to be here. Excited to discuss some industry trends, and especially on the back of COVID. So yeah, looking forward. Thank you.
And many of us know a sort of a very well-known brand within the industry, Glovent. Glovent has evolved. You know, we've been business partners and friends with Glovent for more than 10 years. And as our business has evolved, so has theirs. And it's been very interesting to see how they've adopted new technologies over the years. Adriaan, who's the director of Glovent, is with us today. So Adriaan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. My name is Adriaan. Thank you. I'm from Glovent Solutions. I hope I know quite a lot of the people in this webinar. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and it's always great to talk about property technology in the property space. It's something we've been eating and sleeping and dreaming for quite a number of years. So we thank you for being part of this.
Absolutely, eating and sleeping and dreaming, definitely. So, and of course, my absolute favorite person in all the world, Jaime-Lee Gardner, who's the CEO of Estate Living. She is with us today. And the reason why we brought Jamie into this particular webinar is because Jamie has this very, very unique skill of understanding what the market is looking for, identifying those issues and offering solutions. And that's what this is really about, is what are those solutions when it comes specifically to communication. Jay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jaime-Lee Gardner. I'm the founder and CEO of Estate Living. We're a specialist communication resource for the residential estate and mixed-use development environments. And communication is our business. Solutions around communication is our business. And we're really looking forward to this webinar with you today. Thanks for that.
Great, thanks, Jamie. So just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get going. You'll notice, I'm sure many of you have been in Zoom webinars or on Zoom meetings over the course of this year. But if you look at the bottom of your sort of box, you'll see that there is a little box that says chat. If you click on that chat box, it will then open up a chat. This is the place to put your questions. So if, as we're speaking, as the presenters are presenting, if there is any information that you're looking for, specific questions you would like us to answer, something that's come up, please feel free to put it in the chat box, and we will either address it in this presentation, or one of the members of the panel will address it on the side, but those questions will be addressed. Further to that, we will also have some polls throughout the webinar. If you can, what Luke has just popped one up for us, you can just answer that poll question. We appreciate it because it enables us to collect data and information and understand what your needs are. Once you've finished answering, you can just click on the red button at the top and it will go away. Yeah, and we should have 4 of those throughout the course of the webinar. So I think as we get going now, we're going to stick to our time as much as possible. I think the first thing we're going to do is introduce Liezl, and what Liezl's going to bring to this webinar is for us all to understand what is the beginning, what is the challenges that are faced by residential communities, what are the needs of those communities, and how can we address these throughout this presentation. So over to yourself, Liezl.
Thank you so much. And we're just going to share the screen there. Thank you, everybody. Yes, St. Francis Links is situated, you can go to the next slide. Thank you so much, Jules, in the Eastern Cape. And I'm sure a number of you, if you haven't been here, would just love to come and visit us. We're just an hour from Port Elizabeth in, I guess, what has been known as a rural area, but I think that's going to change. We're seeing some exciting things happen. We can switch again. Thank you. So the Links is a residential and golf estate, and we have our 2 entities, the Homeowners Association and the club. And the beauty of our business is that we're just governed by 1 board of directors. And then under that is the Exco, and under that the entire operational team. We're a very hands-on team and quite a small team actually to run an estate such as ours. We overlap everything. So in terms of our Exco, there's 5 of us and we're all involved in each other's sections, and we can fill in for the other one if we ever need to. But yeah, it works well. That's also something that I'd invite anybody who wants a little bit more information on how we operate both companies under 1 team. Welcome to give me a shout. Thanks. Let's go to the next slide. So we have a total of about 540 stands. 514 of them have been sold and 186 completed homes. So whilst we see some estates that are really building 100 homes a year, for us 25 to 30 homes is good. When we saw the 2008 crash, we were building nothing for about 4 years. And the interesting thing is that our permanent residents have increased from 54% to 67% just in this pandemic period. Thank you. Let's switch again. So my husband Jeff he never says retirees. He likes to refer to it as the forever young. And on the estate, I think that's how we all feel. And the interesting thing is that we've seen so many new young families arrive. Some came during the lockdown or just before the lockdown, and they've stayed. Our increase in sales has been tremendous since the pandemic, and I think that means that people And this is really what this webinar is about, that they see that they can operate from everywhere, and are comfortable with it, are comfortable with technology. And the husbands can maybe they go commute once a month or once a week, but other than that they can really operate from everywhere. So the surge in permanent residence has been enormous for our area and for our estate. And as I mentioned, property sales are really flying now. So, and those aren't people who are speculating to come and spec buy. We're seeing people come to build now and live here. Thank you. Switch again. So the Links operates essentially as its own municipality. We operate our whole homeowners association with our own. I listed a few things there, as you can see, with our own water supply, electrical services, sewage services. We do all of our own readings and we do the billings within ourselves. So just a little background before we get into the communication and digital side. Is that we do all of that in-house. So when it comes to digital, then I think the having the utilities in the palm of your hand really works well, and we will be speaking about that a little bit later on. And then also the Clubhouse and the Championship course that we have. So that's essentially how we're made up. So security was a necessitated digital comms, but also communication. And this really, I always believe communication is the foundation. If you, I mean, we find, and I truly believe we're probably one of the most out there in communication estates. We try and utilize everything we have, and it might still not be enough. So I'll speak a little bit about that when we get to the challenges, but I also on this slide want to just touch on not only communication within our estate and to our own community and our staff and our tenants, etc., but also outside of our gates, where we are actively participating in various, not just social responsibilities, but forums and groups, etc., outside of the estate to keep them informed. If you're driving into St. Francis Bay, we're pretty much all of the west side of the road that comes in. So we're seen as a big enough company to try and better our community around us, and we do that. Thank you. Jules, you can switch. Thank you. So when we got to the considerations in terms of our why or how do we choose what we go with the digital options available to us, we recognize that we're really first in the people business. We're in the people business, we're in the community business, we're in the golf business, but we are not creators of digital platforms. And whilst I know that many estates go out and search for their own or create their own platforms and apps, we look to turn to the professionals, and those who are on board on the panel today are those professionals. And when we came to choosing the service provider that we chose, and that's Glovent, it was based on, and we had some choices. For us, we just decided we know that we need what we need. We needed good communication, and we needed enhancement of our security systems. For us, we are not selling property ourselves. Agents in the village can, all the reputable agents sell here. So we specifically did not need a platform that provided us with more sales tools that would enable and maximize more sales on the estate. Although I have to say that that's definitely, those platforms are really good for estate agents, and also when there's still active sales within the estate, and where the estate needs to really drive sales, or the developer is still in the development period really driving sales. So for us, the focus was really to find out what our needs were, and then see what we could afford at the time. And big part of that was relationship-based references and best practice. And here I commend ARC and Jeff Gilmore on the amazing networking job and business partner relationships that they build and that we can all benefit from as community managers. Thank you. Let's switch. So when it comes to digital, our two important considerations was the access control, and again putting it in the palm of the property owner's hands. It also helps us to remove a certain manual responsibility from the homeowners association when a property owner is in charge of who he lets in and out of the estate. So certainly security enhancement through the access control, and then back to communication, eased administration, user convenience as well. So it allows us to send all of our notices, push notices, database management, utility accounts, allows our homeowners to log tasks, whether it's a street light that's out or a water delivery that they need. We can send updates, and of course there are emergency notices as well. We have had to use some of those with all of our fires, etc. And so those communication tools are really vital to us. Thanks. Let's switch again. So these are all the different forms of communication which we employ at the links. And the ones that are in that bluish color are all digital. The open door policy is a no-brainer. Nobody needs to make an appointment to come and see us. The doors are open. Any of us are available. We don't practice a hierarchy at St. Francis Links. Anybody will make time to see you, and we encourage the in-person communication firstly. And then I mentioned the emergency and that emergency notifications. At the time when we were experiencing the fires in 2016 specifically, and they were on our doorstep, a 9-day fire that threatened ourselves, our whole estate as well. We created a WhatsApp group at the time, and there wasn't one then. And WhatsApp groups really can be troublesome. In our case, it has been really well managed, but it is on its way out. It's being replaced by our app communication, and so yeah, I would be very skeptical about WhatsApp groups. Push notifications through our app. Then there's the weekly newsletter, which doesn't just include communication to our property owner database. It is it's anybody and everyone who's really ever walked through our doors who would like to learn more of the links. Jeff manages it, and it gets emailed every week, and it's really an interesting newsletter. Then we physically have monthly get-togethers, and that takes pressure off of the AGM in a way. We like to call them mini AGMs, even though they're not formal. They get done over a dinner. We invite everybody to come and have a seat, come and have a drink. We offer an economical, delicious dinner, and each of Exco will stand up and just talk about the happenings in their department or on the estate. And it really could relate to any subject. We also offer the opportunity for questions, and it's really an informal, wonderful networking and interaction evening. We do that about once a month. We got about 60, 70 people attend that at a time. Now, of course, during COVID, during the hard lockdown, there weren't any, but we did just have one recently, and made sure that social distancing and all the protocols apply. And then a new one, because communication, a newsletter, push notifications, WhatsApps, SMSs, emails are never enough. Nothing is ever enough. So we've now started also the state of the estate, which will be specifically just to our property owners, a little newsletter type, or almost a newspaper type little update at their fingertips that will be sent to tell them all about how many homes are being built. Maybe there's homes in their road. Maybe they want to take a look at the plans for that home, even though they may not specifically object to the point where they could have an influence on such plans. But that's the kind of open door policy that we like. So the more that everybody out there is informed, the less likely they are to start rumors or listen to bar talk, the cocktail circuit as it's known here. So put it out there at all times, any information that you can, and the State of the Estate's going to do that for us. The website, and when we redesigned our website a couple of years ago, we also made sure that it was now phone friendly. The majority of websites these days should be, and they're all mostly accessed now by mobile device, not necessarily on a desktop or a laptop anymore. And then, of course, the social media accounts, our estate app I spoke about, which manages communication and visitor access management, and then all of our bookings that are also online, golf bookings. And then we have a person employed just as our HOA liaison. She's almost secretary to all. She is available to anybody who needs to come and talk about or ask advice about a garden service. They need to have their pets registered, but she is just there to facilitate and assist with all of their inquiries. Thank you. Let's switch again. So challenges, and I said it before, it really does feel from our standpoint like it is one-way communication. And you've just seen all of the platforms and all of the ways that we communicate, and it still sometimes feels like one-way communication. And then you get the guys who say, well, I never saw that notice. Well, that's maybe because you didn't bother to read the email. So you can take Muhammad to the mountain, or how does it go? But this has really been one of our biggest challenges, is to get our property owners to actually read it. We did have resistance to digital change at first with a community that is retired. They're not so technologically savvy. And for that, we also thank our service providers such as Glovent, who just puts one of their very patient people here for a day or two, and property owners can come and sit with their phone and learn exactly how to operate these mobile devices and these apps. So it's been a process of education. And I stress again that there can never be enough engagement with your property owners. There's just never enough. I've sat in meetings where I've been told by homeowners that they just used to a once-a-year AGM. And that's probably the one place where people go to, or people might even try to avoid, but that's really not your marketing opportunity to get your community involved. So that open door policy and constantly just engaging in any form that you can is what we would encourage. And so, yeah, when we talk about challenges for us, it's just continuously looking for more effective channels to promote two-way communication. And so when our property owners play golf, we go out of our offices and we go walk the floors and we go speak to them. When they come into the bar, our financial manager comes out of his office and walks to the tables and just says, how was your day? It isn't just a golf pro job to do that, or even a waitress job to do that. Just keep yourself visible so that they also feel comfortable with even the people who send the bills and send the accounts. Any of our managers, our liaison, our golf bookings person, everybody just walks the floor and continuously engages. In fact, what we have done for many years, this year might be a little bit different, is to our head pro and Jeff, our CEO, take a golf cart on the day before Christmas, and they go and deliver 1 lemon to each home on the estate, and they tell those homes, wish them Merry Christmas, and they also tell them to, whatever life brings, to just make lemonade out of lemons. And so this year might be a little bit different, and now they'd have to carry 200 lemons with them. Fortunately, we're near the Long Kloof and our lemons are donated. They're beautiful. Let's switch to the next slide. All right, I'm about done. And just to wrap things up for us, the COVID period has really brought us all back to this digital communication age that we're in. So yes, webinars, Zoom meetings, digital AGMs is a thing of, is going to stay. I don't think that there will ever be times again where it won't at least be hybrid meetings for AGMs, etc. It's part of our day-to-day lives. And yep, thank you to the panel who make it all possible for us. And over back to you guys. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liezl. Thank you. Just a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Did you have your digital platforms in place at the start of the lockdown? Had you been working with Glovent for quite some time and had everything set up?
Yes, we did. And I think that the moment that the lockdown was announced, we met, our core team met, and we started prescribing everything. It was so many things to think through, including access control. What we did on the estate, in fact, is we disabled the visitor access management during that first lockdown. And whilst it wasn't welcomed by all, the fact of the matter is that it wasn't in our hands to make the decisions not to. We felt that we had to rely or to adhere to regulations as issued by government, and we actually shut visitor access down at that time. And as the lockdown levels allowed us to open it up again, we did. But at every stage, we communicated that through to everybody. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you had a stable platform at that time before the lockdown started. Did you find that homeowners were engaging? Was it prior to the lockdown that you were dealing with the resistance around digital technology?
Yeah, I think and I think we will always deal with it for so long as it's new to some people. Yes, we were. What we have found though is that during the lockdown, it's interesting how and we've even had discussions on this in the RCC and the regional working committee groups and on the ARC meetings, is how there have been people blame us for their frustrations in lockdown. So no matter how much you communicated and you carried over what government was regulating and enforcing, it seemed to people that it was us enforcing those. So some of those, it did cause splinter groups, and some of those still exist. And it's comforting to know that it's not just our estate, that it had an effect all around the country. Yeah. So we still just have to do the best we can and communicate fact.
I think absolutely. I think that a lot of estate management team have taken some hits over the last month, but I think it's been an evolution as well. Just you mentioned also that you see digital AGMs as something that's going to be staying with you. I'm assuming then that it was part of your MOI or your constitution to allow for digital AGMs. Do you think this is something that that estates should review in their documents? And
absolutely.
And how
absolutely.
Did that, can I ask you why it was included in your MOI? Was this something that yourself and Jeff saw happening, or was it the developer that had it already, digital solutions in place?
Well, our MOI has been in existence for years, and in fact since I think it was 2010, 2011, and it was already in there. So somebody was very clever and added. When we included it at the time, for us, we were thinking more about email, so that you could send a legal notification, debt collection, letter of demand via email, and that it sort of evolved from there. And then when AGMs became electronic, we were fortunate that it was in there. So I would most definitely advise, if you don't have it in there, to introduce it into your MOI. And when you decide to go with the digital or with an online AGM, electronic communication, as the Companies Act refers to it, again, don't try and invent the wheel yourself. Stick with what you're best at, and bring a company in that can facilitate that. And I must say that the company we're working with are superb. They're JSE, they work with many of the JSE companies, and we've had now quite a bit of interaction with them. There will be 3 practice sessions. We attended one of the meetings. It's also, I think, a lot more accurate than a show of hands at an AGM, etc. So we're very comfortable going into our first AGM in an electronic communication format.
And just my last question before we move on to Nicole. When you were setting up your systems originally, so when you initially started doing your research, and I know Glovent's here with us, so Adriaan, block your ears. When you initially started to do your research, how much weight did you put on the opinions and suggestions of the digital teams that you met with?
Well, I first have to say, I have a whole lot of faith in my colleagues in the industry. And as this residential community industry grows, if those attendees on this webinar today are not part of Association of Residential Communities and also the RCC, I would really encourage you to do so, because that's where the seed is planted. And it is such an easy phone call to make to a colleague in the industry to say, what do you think? What do you use? Because, you know, everybody who sells us these digital platforms are also salespeople, and they're going to tell you the best thing. But by the time that, you know, it's the same thing. If you're going to buy a car, if you're going to hire a new employee, you're going to go and look for references. And that's what we did. So our decisions were really based on relationships. And at that time, Glovent was one of the forerunners in the communication and access management systems. And when Adriaan speaks, perhaps he can remind me. I think we've been with you now for 4 years or 5 years, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, for us, it was really relationships that that all agreed or made us agree who to go with.
Sorry, thank you so much. So Liezl, I see there's 1 or 2 questions that have come up for you in the chat room regarding the company that you're using for the AGMs. If you would mind terribly just letting them know, we would be very grateful. I think that, and thank you so much for your time and explaining to us. I mean, you have and it's incredible. It's a number of sort of channels to market, or the number of routes that you've got to your homeowners and residents. You would think that that it was enough, but at the end of the day, and
never
I have
enough.
to say, it's never enough. And this thing about Andrew going down to the bar to meet the pros, I don't think you need to necessarily believe it. I think Andrew's just going, your accountant is just going there for a couple of drinks, and I like that. I'm just going to go and meet the homeowners.
Yes.
I know Andrew. He's not meeting the homeowners.
I also know Andrew. You're right. But exactly. It's really encouraging to get your people out of the office and get them on the floor and get them to talk with your homeowners. You know. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
and yes,
Liezl.
I'll just go on and answer now.
Thank you so much. So, bearing in mind everything that Liezl said about the value of communication, this is where I'd really like to introduce Nicole from StateMate, because understanding communication and how it works, leaning on those professional opinions, and understanding the mechanism in which to deliver that communication is so important. So Nicole, perhaps you could tell us a bit about the journey of StateMate and some of the solutions that you have in place.
Cool, thanks so much, Lou. I appreciate it. StateMate is a communication and management tech company. We kind of focused on really the community communication and the management of that. Jules, you can go to the next slide, thanks. But our main sort of focus has really been to use modern solutions to create like a community ecosystem. So we've just noticed you know, we're still quite a fresh company. I know Glovent's been around for quite a while. We noticed that there was like community ecosystems should be what's created. So we really felt that that's kind of our ethos, if you could call it that. You can move to the next slide, Jules. And so that was our focus, is creating these ecosystems for communication. So we kind of looked at community needs, and we found that like property technology needs to provide tools to allow managers to better manage communities. So you often see there's a lot of emailing, a lot of WhatsApp groups going on. And while those can be handy, we noticed that there needs to be a life cycle with everything. So these things might not be as handy as you think they are. You know, Liezl touched on earlier how, you know, maybe a WhatsApp group is sort of fading away. And there's no life cycle when it comes to someone, a resident, for instance, reporting an issue. They need to be able to report an issue. It needs to go through the proper protocols. There's, you know, it's got to be ticketed. They need feedback. Communication is so important. So they need the feedback. Management need to still deal with the issue and, you know, allocate it to the relevant people, and then it needs to be resolved. And that's sometimes something that can't really be managed well with emails and WhatsApps. You know, these property technologies are the things that are really doing that well. And also there's things that can't be picked up. So there's patterns that emerge. There's commonalities that you see when you can track things. So if you've noticed that 10 people have reported a busted water pipe in the last month, when you pull reports off your system, that's something to be concerned about. If you look at the location of these, they're in the same spot. These are things that are going to help management better manage the communities. And that kind of communication can sometimes just not be achieved with your emails and your WhatsApp groups. You can move to the next slide, please, Jules. So this is, I'm not doing a sales pitch here. I think what we want to focus on is property technology as a whole and how these different systems work. For us, and I think the rest of the property management companies, they provide tools that managers to better manage communities. So, you know, our system, much like anyone else's, it's a modular system. So, you know, you can't be all things to the communities. They have different needs. So that's why it's a modular system. So they can choose which features might be applicable to them. And then there's a lot of customization around that. And I think we all kind of do that. That's the way prop tech is going. You need to be able to customize and suit the needs of others. Liezl had touched on a little bit of engagement, and obviously I think Jaime-Lee, you will also bring that into play at the end of this webinar. But in terms of engagement, we've found that maybe specific features might bring engagement. You know, you've got your security features with the panic button that could really be beneficial. So a lot of people enjoy that. Your notifications going out, you know, the community information and community boards. These are things that sort of really encourage engagement. Obviously, I totally agree with Liezl when she mentions training and support to get everyone on board. You know, sometimes people just need their hands held a little bit, and that just gets them on board. They're a little bit nervous about technology. And so I think that's very, very important. But, you know, it can't just be a whole bunch of tools. You need a balance of like tools and then the engagement for these sort of systems to work really well. Jules, you can move to the next slide. Thanks. I'm not talking for very long compared to Liezl, but going back to EstateMate's sort of real core focus is the ecosystem. So we found that you cannot be all things to all people, and we don't want to be. We want to focus on what we're really, really good at, and that is the communication side and the management side. And then we want to link and integrate with other solutions. And if you look at the tech and how things are moving, not just with property tech, in tech in general, integration is really the way people are going. And if you think about the property management company and the accounting software, you've got your levy payments, your utility management, you want that all to be in one place. And our sort of thought is we're really good at one thing, and there are other companies that are really, really good at what they do. Let's rather work together and create this solution, this ecosystem that we talk about. for the communities and the community management. You know, it's gone are the days where you can work in these silos. You know, you need these things to be more unified. It's pointless having 20 apps for 20 things. Let's work together, one solution. And so I think it's key the communities are left with a choice in what solutions suit them. You know, they must decide in each aspect what solution best suits them, what property management company best, what accounting software best suits them. And then those solutions come together so they can connect, integrate, and act as effectively as possible. So integrating technologies is really now a reality. Most systems communicate using APIs. It's really where we see things going in the future. And it's created the space to easily connect bespoke solutions. So for instance, I'm going to use, Ariel's going to be talking after me. So I'm going to use them as an example. You know, your security, your access control, visitor management, you know, companies, that's what they do very, very well. So we integrate with those types of companies and other solutions. Whoever the estate chooses or the community chooses, we then integrate. And one of those happens to be at the gate. And so it's just a really nice, gives the community sort of everything that they need. And that's, I think, what these property technology companies should be doing. I think the key to solutions addressing PropTech is specifically addressing community challenges, and you cannot do all of it. You've got to work with everyone else and really integrate for these things to work. Yeah. And that's kind of me, very short and sweet.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I just have just quickly, I don't want to take up all our time, but I do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Please.
You know, you talk about integration and you talk about wanting to, you know, the state must choose. You know, it's difficult to choose if you don't know what's out there and if you don't actually know what you need. You know, I know, you know, if I think about my business, I find out what I need as I get myself into the hot seat around that need. And then you end up making very quick decisions, which is almost like in a crisis management type role as you try and integrate new opportunities. So as a specialist in the industry and as someone who understands the importance of an API, I mean, we've developed an API with you as well, and we understand, it's one thing I've learned this lockdown. API and animation, it's what I'm going to celebrate at the end of the year. But, you know, is there a kind of a checklist that says, okay, you know, I'm a residential community, these are my, like, how do I break down the areas where technology could increase efficiencies? And how do I identify those areas and then look at that integration from there?
I mean, if I'm honest, I can't imagine there's an area where technology wouldn't make things more efficient. You know, in every aspect, if you look at the communication, if you look at security, in every area of your community, if you are breaking it down and looking at what could be more efficient, technology will improve those areas in every way. And I think Liezl had it right in that you need to ask around, you need to research, you need to chat to ARC, RCC, you need to see what else is out there. I think doing the research is imperative because a lot of times people hear only of one and they don't know that there are others out there. And I don't know if that's on our part because we're not kind of advertising enough or whatever in terms of the property tech that's out there. But I think that, you know, people need to do their research. They've got to research. It's like anything, you know, you do as much research as you can and then get the feedback from your peers, the other, you know, how communities in your area that are running that way. Just as Liezl said, I think you've got to look at that. But there really isn't an area which I don't believe could be improved by tech. I think tech can improve most areas.
And Nicole, what about risk? So, you know, there's a famous putting all your eggs in one basket, or, you know, and you know, there is definitely a need in the market for a sort of a portal that supports everything, so you can integrate everything into it, and that information is then stored, and that data is stored. you know, is it risky to have one portal that integrates with everything and data stored in the cloud? I mean, should I be worried about that data?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we all are aware, and we have been aware for quite some time, that Poppy is here, and we should have already been dealing with that and abiding by that. And you won't find service providers that do servers and that aren't Poppy compliant and aren't doing their utmost to protect your data. I feel that if you are going to go with a solution that can integrate with everyone, you know, you don't want to be, if it doesn't work, you don't want to be tied down. I really truly see it happening, and we've seen it with other tech, is that everyone's going to go this route. It's just, you know, a matter of time. So we all are going to go this route. If some are a little bit behind now, they will come into play soon. They will start integrating as soon as possible. You know, those that haven't integrated will begin to. Because I really think that's the way the future is going. If it's not just in the property area, it's happening that way. That's just how technology is going. And yeah, I mean, if it's not protected, that's just sort of, it should have been done. I mean, Poppy, you really shouldn't be worried about your information. I know people are worried, but if it's a reputable company, you have nothing to be worried about. And there's things that you could, like, if you need to ask for certificates to prove that everything's you know, safe, and you can ask for this information and really get it, and make sure, you know, if you are feeling a bit worried, they should be able to supply you with evidence of the protection.
Okay. Okay. So you've mentioned integration. You're obviously integrating with At the Gate as well. That's one of your integration partners. So here's a question. So if somebody arrives at the estate, so somebody arrives at the estate and they can't gain access, who do you phone?
So we actually, that's very frustrating, as you don't want to talk to 10,000 people. So what we've had, because we don't just integrate with At the Gate, we integrate with other solutions as well. We always come through to us. So we are the face. And then what happens behind the scenes, the resident doesn't really need to know about. It's not their problem. They want one person and one support system. So that's how we work it. Yeah, I just think it's easier. EstateMate is the app you're downloading. So EstateMate are the people you talk to, and how we handle it on the back end is yeah. It's not for you to worry about. No, I mean, we just talk to them, but you don't want someone to have to go here for this and here for that. I mean, yeah, I mean, what a nightmare. So you want one solid support personnel, and that's kind of how we work.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
And
you know, as having built this API with you, you know, and I understand that some of the objections in the market is, you know, technology, and it's so, you know, you'll learn something new all the time, and it's challenging. You know, at the end of the day, those interfaces of most of the tech platforms are very similar to the social media interfaces that you're already using. 100%. So if you're comfortable on Facebook, the chances are, and I'm sure that being a bit of a Facebook generation and not really an Instagram generation, you know, if you can kind of manage your way around Facebook, the chances are that you can manage your way and figure out the solutions around most of the property apps, and they're pretty self-explanatory. And nothing to be scared of. I don't think people are scared of technology. I think people are busy when it comes to change, you know, and it requires you to learn a new thing and make changes. And, you know, like sometimes that's not something that you want to deal with. So but it is interesting that you're integrating, and I think this is where we know, as from a communication aspect, if you're having an integrated access control into your app or portal, that does increase your downloads, and it does help with your engagement, because folks 100%. Are having to go onto that app to be able to access. So I think on that note, let us introduce At the Gate. Ariel, thank you so much for coming through and explaining to us a little bit more about access control and how that integrates with communication. If I can just hand over to you. Jules, do you want to pull up the presentation?
Thanks, Lou, and the team. Also very excited to be here. I think it's a unique opportunity for everybody. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm actually still in St. Francis Links, by the way. So I'm kind of moving my way back to Joburg, which can take some time. Look, we had a unique place in access control in general. On the back of COVID and still being quite deep in COVID, there's been a lot of developments, a lot of industry changes, and a lot of new players in the industry. So it's quite unique, and it's very, you know, it's a good time to be looking for these solutions, because there's a lot out there. Just to create a bit of context in terms of what we do as a business, I'm not going to dive into like a full sales pitch either. Just to kind of show you what we do on my next slide. I've got a short video, and then I'll just jump into it.
At the Gate, powered by ATG Digital, is an access control device which scans vehicles and driver's licenses as well as other important information to keep an accurate record of everyone entering your premises. Unlike the old visitor book, it will speed up your access control process and, most importantly, ensure your legislative compliance. All ATG devices and systems are POPI certified and GDPR compliant. To prevent data theft, visitor information is encrypted upon scanning and stored securely on a cloud-based platform. At the Gate is a transformational business solution, flexible to user requirements for improved security, professionalism, and efficiency. Your dashboard allows for detailed reporting, sending invitation codes, and pre-approving visitors. For additional security, our system exclusively offers third-party information via instant notifications on high-risk vehicles and individuals. To streamline your access control, tighten security, and become legally compliant, visit atthegate.biz today to get your free live demo.
Okay, great. Look, I'm going to just touch base briefly on the industry itself. I think it's, as I said before, the industry's come a long way in terms of access control, and there's kind of a few parts to it. So we obviously seen from a visitor management point of view that the industry's kind of gone from in the last 5 years, a manual book to something that's digital, you know, whether it's using keypads or using devices such as ours. The industry's come from this manual collection of data to something which is digital, transparent, something you can go back on. And that's kind of where the industry's come from. And I think it's quite important to understand where the industry's come from, to understand where we're at now and kind of where it's going. And I think that's quite important from a resident access point of view. You know, if we look at a year, 2, 3 years, we're still playing a lot in the biometric space or NFC cards or certain clock-in cards. And a lot of that's also got its own challenges in terms of, you know, when it comes to cards, who's got those cards? When it comes to biometrics, you know, you can only load people on the site. You can't really load them away from the site. So those are some of the challenges, and where the industry's come from. If you can just go to the next slide. Yeah, you can click the next one. Look, access control is quite a unique, it forms quite a big part of, there's multiple parts to it. So if we look at access control, and Julie, you can just click the next point there. We look at visitors and residents. Although they're merging, and we're seeing a big merge in the industry where portals are covering both resident access control for residents and for visitors. At the moment, if we split it and just kind of break it up in terms of what At the Gate does and what's out there in the world, we deal a lot with unannounced visitors, which is quite a big thing. If you look at you know, states across the country where visitors just arrive, whether it's a delivery or just a random visitor coming to see. So we've got that unannounced visitors, which is something you have to deal with. And with that, At the Gate's got a bunch of features that we've made use of. If we look, we've got an ability to dial straight from the device. We call it scan to call, and that's an automated call, which the guard doesn't have to do. There's no noise of the guard. There's no language barriers. It's an automated call that goes straight into the unit that you're visiting, and they've got the option to press 1 or to allow, or 2 to deny. So that's quite a big thing from an unannounced visitor, that kind of control. And then we go into announced visitors. And announced visitors is someone who's been pre-invited, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a CHAR, or someone who's been pre-invited. And with that, At the Gate's also got a bunch of features which we deal with. We've got an application that you can use our app to invite a visitor and share a QR code. And recently, which is something which I'll touch on in a moment, we've integrated with WhatsApp. And although we see a lot of estates moving away from WhatsApp, we see WhatsApp as a very quick way to invite someone if they don't have a communication tool, or perhaps if they're quite a small estate, they could just send out create the invite using WhatsApp and share a QR code with that person. And that we see as quite a big change in the industry, and something that we've had to adapt to. Our next point, if Julie, you can just click the next point there, is the residents, which is a whole different way of recording them. And what we use as At the Gate is we've adapted facial recognition technology, which is something in my next slide. I'll touch on where the industry is going, or where I feel the industry is going. But facial recognition certainly is quite an advanced way of approving or allowing access to certain areas, especially when it's connected to the boom and it automatically triggers the boom. And you can obviously load these residents before they or at any time. So those are kind of the 3 ways we deal with announced visitors, unannounced visitors, and residents as a solution. If you can just jump to my next slide, and I'll touch on the last 2 points of our solution, where I see it kind of moving. We've got a solution that I've got there called relays, and relays is a lot of where I see the industry going, and that's accountability on the security guard. Our relay allows our device to push an alert or trigger straight to the boom, or to allow the boom to open. And that's something which many estates make use of. It's that extra layer of control. It's, instead of using a button to open the boom, it takes away the control from the guard. And it creates that transparency and that accuracy, because you've now got that data. You've now recorded it, and only then can it trigger a boom. The next one I've put there is an IoT cam, which is quite advanced, and we're seeing it as quite a big push into the, in the next few years. Is as a scan is done, we've got a camera that actually verifies that vehicle scan was done. So it's almost, again, it's accountability on the security guard, and it's also to make sure that disc matched that plate, which is, from an access control point of view, with, I can go up the road. I live in Joburg, so if I go to Benoni, I can probably pick up a plate. So that kind of prevents that. And we see that as quite a big point going forward, because you've now creating that accountability on the guard, and you almost double authenticating, almost an OTP, if I can call it that, on your solution. If you can go to the next slide, and I'll just jump into the implementation process, or the management process of access control, which Nicole touched on, and I think Liezl also touched on it. Look, these solutions are all cool. I mean, I've seen solutions here from the States. We've seen solutions come and go from all around the world. And we see this daily in the field. Our teams see this in the field. So I think that's key. That's key to first understanding access control. You can have the best solution out there. If the solution isn't implemented properly, and if the training isn't done, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your residents, you're losing trust, and you're nowhere. So the first point I think to that is, once you've chosen your solution, and on Nicole's point and Liezl also, I'd look around. I'd love you to come to At the Gate, but I would suggest looking around. And once you've done that, when you start off, I would have quite a strict plan in terms of the training. Are the guards getting training? Are the residents getting training? What kind of onboarding are those residents getting? Are they making use of the app? Do they know how to invite a visitor? Do they know how to add, you know, if they have someone staying at them, do they know how to add those people? So in that, I would suggest making sure that onboarding and that support, that infrastructure support is quite key. If we look at the Gate and where we've come from, we've got branches around the country. We've got Joburg, KZN, East London, Port Elizabeth, Mpumalanga, we've got Nelspruit, we've got Middelburg. So we've actually had to build branches in all these regions, because without the support and without that ongoing support, you're wasting your time. You can build any platform, you can build, the developers sitting in, I don't want to name countries, but there could be random developers building amazing tech. And without that support, without that training, without that implementation, you're nowhere. So I think that's very key to the solution itself, and to any solution. If it's not managed and if it's not supported, you're nowhere. Which is probably the core of At the Gate. If I think of how we've tried to grow, we've had to ensure internally from a business point of view, can we support our units in the field? Can we support our technology? And then only then can we build on that, and can we create new features, which is, once we do that, we make sure we can support it. If you can just go to my next slide. Look, this slide's quite an important one, and I think everybody's kind of, looking at certain thinking, there's tech coming out and there's a whole world of new solutions. But I've touched on where access control came from in the last few years, and how it's developed, especially visitor management and resident management. And I wanted to just touch on briefly kind of where I see the industry going, where we're seeing it. We're obviously in front of many estates on a daily basis. We're working with many estates who we're engaging with and understanding how their needs are evolving. And, on that point, I would say that there's estates which have got 100 units, there's estates with 50 units, there's estates with 500 units. So if you're going with one solution, that's probably not the right thing to do. I would make sure that those solutions fit that flexibility. And if there is new houses, and if there is more users, what does the billing structures look like? And that's quite important. But if we look into the next 5 years and kind of the vision of ATG, or the vision of At the Gate, and of where we see the industry going, I'll start from the bottom up, and Nicole touched on it, and it's key to the industry, and it's, is integrations. As an access control company, and as specializing in access control, it's what we do. We breathe it all day. Our salespeople do it all day. Our solution architects breathe it all day. So we're seeing problems, we coming back, we're fixing problems, and we're building on that. So we're moving somewhere. If I wanted to say today that I'm going to build a Glovent platform and try build a communication platform, or I'm going to be nowhere. There's no point. You guys aren't going to get a good solution. We're going to waste our time. So we've very much honed in on access. We've honed in on the features. We've honed in on how it's advancing and what we're doing to advance. On that point, I touch on, internally, how are we doing it? Do our developers based locally? Are we engaging with them? Do they understand these solutions? Are we bringing them to meetings? So those are key things which I would look for, because times are moving. As we can see how it's moved in 5 years, the next 5 years are going to be double as quick. And you've got to be choosing a solution that can match that. and that's quite key. The next one is obviously touchless, which is as you kind of have seen over the last few months. Touchless is a key thing. We've obviously got our facial recognition reader. We've got the QR code that no one touches anything, even with a driver's license scan. That our 2D scanner allows for the guard just to point it at the license. Those are key things, and as we kind of develop with our teams, and we touch on integrations, as I said before, with WhatsApp and inductions and certain safety things, or whether you're dealing with contractors and things like that. Those are things we're taking into control. And then the next point is an all-in-one solution, which I touched on a moment ago, and I think there's many solutions out of there. You've got access control solutions which cover OB books, which is an incident recording book, or they're trying to control guards, or they're trying to do PTT. So an all-in-one solution, in my opinion, and what we've seen in the field with our many clients, is on the path of failure, because what we've seen is, again, all your eggs in one basket is a dangerous thing, because if it does go down, and these devices go down, which is why we focus heavily on support. But if your system does go down and your solution goes down, you suddenly lose your incident book, you lose your PTT, you lose your communication to your guard, and you're stuck with nothing until someone gets out to fix it. So, and then from a problem solving point of view, when they try to get on the phone to try to fix that, or they send a technician, or, to try to fix that, where do you start? Was it PTT? Was it access? So I would stick with a solution that drills into access. We obviously all know that security is very important. So, it's probably the key. So if you look at access control, I would stick to a solution that just works for access, and make sure that company obviously is forward thinking, is evolving, is adding new solutions, is engaging with the industry, which I think is quite key. And then the next point is, which I know I'll be asked a few questions on, is, where does the guard play? Is the guard falling away? Is it offsite? Is offsite coming? So offsite's a big thing. I think a lot of you guys have seen this. Offsites are coming into play quite quickly. We're seeing rapid advancements on that. But I think where the industry is at the moment is a lot around creating accountability of the manpower that you have. Making sure that manpower is accountable for the actions, using technology, using things like the relays, that the only way a boom can open is if an entry is captured, or using, so things like our IoT cam. And I think although the industry is moving quickly, locally in South Africa, I can't see it moving, an industry as a whole moving completely away from guards, anytime soon. There's obviously different estates have got at different levels of advancement, but from the broader industry, the sites that we're seeing, we're obviously engaging a lot with security companies, the guarding companies. If you're looking for a solution, generally you would go to your guarding company, and you'd ask them, what do they recommend? What do you guys know from doing a risk analysis, from understanding the risk of the site? And we kind of feed on that. From my side, you can just go to the next slide. Yeah, so from my side, that's pretty much it. If you guys do have any questions, you're welcome to contact us. But over to you guys. Thanks for having me once again.
Thank you so much. And we are a bit short on time, but I just have one very quick question, and then I know we must move on. It's interesting that you said WhatsApp as from access control. Now, I think the WhatsApp that's referred to by the state management is perhaps slightly different. That's kind of like a WhatsApp group that's formed, and individuals in the group are complaining about something, but that message is not getting through to management, and it's just kind of a negative circle. What I thought was interesting about access control on WhatsApp, we work a lot internationally, and there is a a community management person that we've met before. His name's Pepe. He comes out from Spain, and they manage over 180 communities with one company. And they generally use WhatsApp as access control. So they're sending the message to the individuals trying to get in. I know you mentioned smaller estates. I think it's important for a smaller estate to have a platform or portal as well. Whatever your size is, you still need to communicate more than access control. But can you just maybe just go a little bit further? The WhatsApp solution that you've looked at, is that based on the needs of your homeowners and residents and estate men? They're asking for a WhatsApp solution? Or was that something that you just saw as a common practice within your particular sector?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Look, the WhatsApp solution itself is the ability to share an invitation or create an invitation using WhatsApp. And the reason we did it on WhatsApp is we sat in front of our estates and they were battling with uptake on our app. They had an app for community management. Some of them had an app for access control, which was ours. So we sat with them and we tried to understand what they can leverage, which they've already got. And most people have got WhatsApp. So we built using WhatsApp. We built using our development team a solution that you can invite a visitor using WhatsApp. You don't need to download an app. You don't need to do anything. We give shared access on our portal to that number, and then they can go and invite visitors. Set to specific categories and times. But it was straight out of, sitting in front of estate managers, HOAs, and just understanding that the uptake or downloads of an access control app is not always, not always done.
And you don't think there's an added risk around security then? If you're able to share the details easily and you're not downloading an app, does it not make that a security risk? Can I not share an access control PIN with Jamie through WhatsApp?
It's also a valid point which we had to sit down and try and understand. So the invitations that you can allow residents to create, you can set different categories and different, you can control them somewhat. Look, if you're allowing residents to invite people into your estate, then you're allowing them to come onto your estate anyway. So there is a control with WhatsApp. You are sending it. They do have to have the QR code with them, which they show, as on arrival. We can also create other fields, such as taking a photo of them. There's also a disc scan. So there are those insurance, that we are doing. WhatsApp's just the ease of inviting someone and controlling it at the same time using the existing WhatsApp infrastructure.
Thank you so much. I would agree with the ease of access, definitely. I mean, I fly all the time, and old SAF Air sends you your ticket over WhatsApp. It's the easiest thing in the world, so it definitely is. It's good thinking on good thing to integrate without creating a WhatsApp group, Liezl. I'm just quickly putting that in there. So let us I'm sorry, we're running, our time is short. Adriaan, let me hand over to yourself so that we can get through and hear what Glovent has done and what's happening within the space. Thank you so much, Ariel, for sharing. And can I hand over to you? Thank you, Adriaan, for being so patient.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, I've got the graveyard shift here, so I hope everybody's still awake. Yes, I think it's quite interesting to do a webinar like this. I've got used to standing in front of a lot of people, and then at least you can see the faces and reactions. I actually have no idea who's listening here, but I assume a lot of people know about us. And also it's a similar message that I shared in the roadshow recently. So, but just quickly a little bit about Glovent for those who maybe don't know about us. So this whole property technology subject or environment is extremely interesting, obviously, to us, because that's exactly where we've been playing and we've been working off. We started a business around 2007, and that was exactly the need that we identified is Just a quick history for those who don't know. So I come from a telecom environment. I worked for Ericsson, and at the time we were busy with big SAP implementations, big ERP systems. So as you know, the technology has been around for a long time, and businesses have been using technology to manage their businesses more effective also for a very long time. Again, we all know SAP, our big business that is. Oh, sorry, I thought people said I can't hear us. Okay, so basically technology has been used for a very long time. And 2006-07, I basically met a friend who was working in the estate industry, and it was quite surprising at the time to realize how little technology was utilized in the estate industry then. And it's actually the same people, it's the same CEOs, same business owners that live in the estates, and there just seemed to be a huge technology void. Saying that on the one side, this also still feels like it's almost a perfect environment to implement technology. I mean, if you really want to have interesting conversations, you should have a glass of wine or two and start brainstorming and almost dreaming about what one can do in a state environment with technology. It's really almost endless and very, very exciting. From being totally self-sustainable, off the grid, self-sufficient, home automation. Technology should really manage almost the entire estate, but reality is 20 years, not 20, maybe 13 years later, from 2007 to 2020, is to be honest with you guys, we haven't seen it. So we haven't seen the take-up of technology in the estate industry that I believe has been is possible, that we believed was possible since 2007. Now there's a bunch of reasons for that, and I'm actually not sticking to my slides. I'll run through it just now. And I do think one of the reasons is obviously we at fault, we as service providers. We've been around for a long time. Competition has come and go. And I think it's a great thing to see more recently. I want to say the past 2-3 years, there's been really new companies coming up like EstateMate doing similar things to what we do. Obviously, originally that's like a threat to us, and we would like, no, we must get them out. But that's not the idea. I think competition is great for any industry. I saw a comment in the chat box. Someone said early bird catches the worm, which is true, I suppose, in many instances. But there's another saying that says the pioneers gets the arrows and the settlers gets the land. So sometimes also if you're a market leader, you get a lot of arrows. You go through a lot of learning. You go through a lot of learning with your clients, and that's why we've always been very thankful. And our whole theme of the roadshow has always been to say thank you to our clients who stuck with us and has been willing to learn with us, because this is a new industry. It's definitely also a learning industry. So even though we're 2020, businesses have been using SAP and technology for years, I really believe that property technology in the estate industry is still an unmatured subject. There's still a lot to learn, and we're all learning together. Okay, but anyway, so I digress totally, but it's just about, and the one theme that came out in this whole thing, which I'm really glad about, I think it's really good for all of us, is the whole thing about integration. So EstateMate also said they're open to integrate. Words were used like they can't be experts in everything. That's the same words we're using. And again, if I can rewind 13 years to 2007, 2008, we obviously had conversations with people in the space at the time, and I can assure you at the time no one wanted to integrate with us. So I think the companies were a lot more closed. They were probably protecting their turf, whatever the reasons were. But I think it's also good for all of you in the audience, for all the estates, that there's more suppliers out there, that there's more people like us, people doing similar things, and that the people are willing to integrate and work with each other. Because reality is we can't be experts in everything. Like at the gate said, they eat and dream and think access control all the time. So does our partner, Wayobi, and other guys out there as well, PT Guest. So that's what they do, and they're really experts with it. So I think it's great if we all take hands. But quickly back to Glovent. So we started 2006, 2007. You'll see on the next slide, basically our vision and goal and passion has always been, like I say, we come from engineering background. Engineers is all the time to look at how can we use technology. Thank you. I think that's perfect. So basically our focus has been on multi-tenant property communities. So I think this is also an important point to quickly stand still on. So when you guys look at technology, I think it's very important to look at what your needs are and what you want to achieve with the technology. And because I don't believe this industry has matured, or the space has been matured, there's still some confusion. So we actually not a property technology. We don't manage properties as sorts. You know, we're not a property technology company. we focus on the communities that's formed around the property. So our focus is more on the people, not on the physical building itself. So you'll probably find that we don't necessarily have things like asset management systems in there, although we're expanding into that. But our core focus has always been on the person and the community that's formed around the property. You get other systems that's more specific property management systems. They talk, they have specifically about, they focus more on the property side, and that's very much used by managing agents. And then you get all kinds of other technologies, other systems out there. So Glovent specifically, we've been focusing on, it's a community management system, but the communities that we focus on are what we call multi-tenant properties, property communities, with the core focus also being on estates. So our sweet spot has been always like the Liezls, St. Francis Links, fan courts. You saw the previous slide. We've got quite a big base of what we call self-managed estates, but obviously it doesn't have to stop there. And we're quite excited to expand that into other property communities and beyond. Even at the end of the day, we might look at even communities like schools, but I think for now our focus will remain on property technologies. And basically, I think it's similar to what was said earlier by EstateMate. Is our core focus is two things. We want to use technology. So we're not a services company. We're probably not going to offer guarding and landscaping services. We might in the future, I doubt it. So we're engineers. We use technology. We're excited about technology. We're constantly looking at what new technology is out there. We believe we developers. We've got a great team of developers working for us full-time. Guys been in the development space. That's what they do. And we're trying to use technology and our development capacity for two main purposes. It's to develop systems and solutions. First of all, to enhance management and more efficient management of the community. So we want to provide tools to Liezl and other estate managers, clients, to assist them to manage the estate more effectively. The second strong focus of ours, I would say, is more recent focus, which I think is also very important, and it actually touches on a lot of the questions that was asked earlier as to how can we also enhance the lifestyle and living of the homeowner, in other words, your clients. So we've been very focused originally on how can we offer tools for the HOA, what can we give to Liezl to make her life better and to manage the estate more effectively. But we've gone beyond it now and say, what else can we do to also enhance the lifestyle of the people in the estate? So I've been saying on a roadshow, one of my goals is still to hear that when a person buys a new property in the estate is to first ask the estate agent, I'm sorry, do they use Glovent there? Because if they use Glovent, we want to live there. So that's probably a bit ambitious, but I think that the theory is they should ask, do they employ technology? What technology is being employed in the estate? Because if technology is being utilized and people are embracing technology, in theory, it should be a more pleasant environment to live in. So that's basically our vision. And then the slide that you're seeing at the moment is to quickly explain then how it all fits together. We've recently launched a new version of our system. And what you see in the middle is what we call our core solution. So I think if one of the questions that might be asked is why haven't we managed as an industry to really get this integrated total solution that everybody's been talking about? And I believe because we haven't managed, including Glovent, to get the core right. So once the core's been solved, the database has been sorted, the integration is, the integration layers are there, and obviously the willingness to integrate, then one can move forward to this total solution, this total integrated solution. But because we got stuck, I think, with sorting the core out, it was difficult to do anything else. It was difficult to integrate Pastel and the utilities and everything onto the Costa core. Sorry, you're going a little bit fast. Can we just go back one, if you don't mind? Or unless that's like a hint for me to move on, then I'll do that. So basically we've got the core solution, and the core solution is basically what you all used to and know of. It's the basic things. It's payment, it's database, communication, memory relations, some of the things going to be talked about now. And then we've got, again, also modular, so very similar to what EstateMate explained. We've got our specialized modules where we will then partner or integrate. So I think this is an important point going back to the integration. There was a question about, do we integrate with At the Gate? So currently our visitor management partners is Wyobi, but we've also integrated with BT Guest, and absolutely we would be willing to integrate to At the Gate. So I think important in the specialized modules section is, that's the portion where we said we can't be experts in everything. So we are and believe we are and try to be very good at offering a great core solution. And then from there on, we want to bring it all together in a total integrated estate management system where we integrate best of class solutions around it. Very importantly though, two things should be achieved. The first one is for the homeowner, should have a single system feel. So basically try to bring it all into one app. So single interface for the homeowner and also for the estate. So you guys also have a single system feel. And maybe I can quickly touch here on a thing that's come up a lot is this single database. So a lot of estates are talking, they want a single database in the estate. So my opinion is you'll never have it. There will always be multiple databases on the estate because there will be multiple systems. So unless you get one system that truly does it all, then maybe it's one database, but I don't think that will come soon. But the trick is then to take all these separate databases and integrate them to one another so you get a single database feel. So in other words, if a homeowner updates his details in one on the mobile app, it propagates through to all the systems rather than having him, well, it probably just doesn't happen all the time and the multiple databases to maintain. We go to the next slide. Sorry, I think I'll rush from here. So quickly, database management. I want to touch on something here briefly. So one of the biggest things that we spend a huge amount of time on is how to design this database. I think you guys in the estate industry, in the property management industry should realize something, that you've got a very unique environment. I take my hat off to estate managers. You've got an extremely complex business, if I can call it. It is a business to run. And if you just look at the database, it's extremely complex thing because you've got property and people and pets and vehicles, and they're all related to one another, and they can have different relations and roles, and people move from one property to another. It's a very dynamic environment. So to really manage and maintain the database is extremely challenging. First of all, from getting a database that's like fit for purpose is not out there. Honestly, if there's been an open source or a standard system out there that could you just plug into this place, then ourselves and EstateMate and all of other people didn't really have a business because they could have just been used. So to find a fit for purpose database, I think is extremely difficult, and then to maintain it from there. So the whole maintenance of the database, onboarding people, how do you update how do you know about this new piano teacher that's now offering piano lessons on Wednesdays and Thursdays? Who's going to tell you about it? And anyway, so that process and dynamic is extremely difficult, and we've spent a lot of time and effort on that. So I believe we've got it right. I believe there's no other database out there that's more purposely fit for estates. So I want to caution everyone on this webinar to not use generic or be careful to use generic ERP or CRM systems out there. It's great systems, but they've all been developed with businesses in mind. So to take that and to kind of round the square peg in a round hole, force it into your environment, I think it's going to be challenging. And even if it's just on the database, to get the database really right. Okay, if we go next. I know the next slide's about communication, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on there. A lot of questions has been asked about communication. I think Jamie's going to touch on that as well, but everything we've said before, we found this remains one of the key features. So we've got facility bookings and all kinds of interesting things, but communication remains one of the key features. And it's so great to hear someone like Liezl saying where they absolutely promote communication in estates. A lot of estates that we've encountered have been afraid of that. They're afraid of offering channels for homeowners to talk. And I believe I believe you should allow them the channels, because at the end of the day, I believe they will voice their opinion anyway, whether it's around a bridesmaid's fire. And then first time you hear about it is when the guy is really upset at the AGM. So I'm also encouraging to offer channels, and obviously then if it can be, then it does make sense to have it all in one controlled environment. That's why having it in your communication system, in your app. So if you have multiple systems, WhatsApp, Facebook, it's all good, but we're just back to that multiple systems that need to be maintained and managed and monitored. It's just tough. We can go on. I think my time is up. Jamie's still smiling, so it's still fine. Okay, there's a whole bunch of information sharing. At the end of the day, the system also should, we always say that the purpose of our system is it should increase management efficiency. So it should make managing the estate easier. Now, with any new system, there's always a transition period and there's teething problems. So the first few months is not easier. People need to learn. People don't like change, but at some point it should really become, ultimately we want the app to become the first point of call to homeowners. So if they want to know about the new rules and regulations, they want to log a question, they want to do anything else, they should, in theory, look at the app first and then contact the HR. So trying to reduce all those phone calls that you get to share the same rules and regulations over and over again. We don't have time for it now, but then the next whole discussion is user adoption. How do we get them to actually engage? I think it's challenging. But yeah, ultimately, at least step one is to have the tools for them, and then step two is to get them to use it. And next. I think there's some of the core features. We're just very proud of the facility booking feature, where people can book and book their tennis courts and whatever facilities you have on the estate, all in the app. We can go on. I think time is up. I think I did bring across the core messages that I want to talk about. Member relationship. Maybe quickly touch on this again. Good example, Liezl and them. I think originally when we started in this industry, many estates was mainly about security. So the main right of existence of estates being, if you can keep people safe, then you're doing your job. And that's also when you look at a lot of the regional estate managers come from security background. So we've seen definite change in that, where estate living is, security is almost now a given. No, it is a given. You assume you're safe in there. Now it's about community and about the member relationship management, and to really almost have a hotel and a concierge approach to it. You know, how do you enhance the lifestyle of the people living in a estate rather than just keeping burglars out? And that's where the whole member relationship management come in. And again, I'm really impressed with what Liezl and I've experienced it firsthand, sitting in the bar area with coffee, and then seeing Jeff walking around and just talking to the people. It's really great. And I really like the lemon thing. I didn't even know about that. You can go on. Something new that we've introduced, maybe just briefly, is a payment solution. We also believe that's going that way. We've got requests from clients, whole cashless environment. There's been a huge amount of development in the whole fintech space, so to also bring the fintech solutions into a estate environment. Next. And then we've got our specialized modules. So we talked about visitor management quite a bit. So I think we can go on from there. And personalized, that's also quite important. Just an interesting comment here. So it was also mentioned earlier, it's always amazing that we talk about 600 estates that we probably had over the past 12 years. I wonder if I personally sat in 5,000 meetings with estate managers talking about these things. And I honestly, every time there's something new, well, most of the times there's something new. Every estate is a little bit unique in their own sense. So we do also, it's quite a challenge for us to balance between offering a standardized solution that we can support over multiple estates at a very fair price versus offering a custom solution to you guys that really fits your needs. And to find that balance is quite challenging, but we're obviously doing a lot to try and achieve that. And that's why we also offer what we call personalized apps, where you can then white label the app for yourself. Next. Utility management. I think if you can just go to the, just skip 2 slides about, I think time is almost, I think my time's definitely up. So I think the next to the roadmap. One more. Okay, integration we talked about, the next slide. So I think the message I want to, forward. The message I want to come across is we spend a lot of time Glovent, and I think a lot of other estates as well, next one, is to basically figure out and get the core right. So that's been a huge challenge for us, like I said, to get the core, the database, the core system right, with the right system hosted solution, with the right integration layers. We believe we've cracked it now. It's great that there's other companies that's got similar solutions, and I'm quite really excited about next year, where after all these years, after 13 years basically of trying to get the core right, I really believe now we've got the platform to start seeing the exciting things, the online meeting modules, the whole business process management, all those kind of things, all the exciting things that technology can bring to actually bring it to estates. Okay, thank you. I think that's the core message I wanted to bring across.
Thank you so much. And it's amazing how you can take 13 minutes of blood, sweat and tears and sort of put it into a 15-minute presentation. I'm so sorry to have to do that to you. I think, you know, unpacking it more and more is really, it's part of that process of education and information. But not to take, I mean, we've been part of that journey with you and some of those sleepless nights, and it's an incredible feat where you are today. And you're right, now that the core is stable, you can start adding on the sizzle. as they say, the steak is ready. Look, I know we've hit our 4:30, folks. I know that a lot of you will have to go, but this is recorded, and I think that it's one of the very key, most important aspects of having these wonderful digital platforms is to be able to get folks to download and engage with it. I mean, I think At the Gate has proven that they've actually gotten created technology solutions into systems like WhatsApp so that they can support engagement. But at the end of the day, we want the estates just so that the estate can run, or the development can run effectively from the time that it's, off out the ground all the way through to the HOA. And then having a strong application and portal in place is very, very vital for that. So Jamie, I'm sorry that your time is a little bit limited, but I know that you're here for a good time, not a long time. So I'm sure that we can talk a little bit about communication. If we could pop that slide on, this is a bit of a cheesy slide, and I have to apologize for choosing it, but I just thought that this image was so powerful. And I just thought that, looking at communication and the effectiveness, for those two individuals in this image, communication is a lifeline. And I think for residential communities that have had facilities in place at the start of the lockdown, it has formed a lifeline for them and for management teams as well. So that really is the power of effective communication. So Jamie, let me hand over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Lou. And thanks, team, for joining us. And Liezl, who had to quickly jump off to a board meeting. We are so grateful for your insight. But 100%, this slide, the power of communication, really does touch home. And that the evidence here of communication being a lifeline, I think has been pertinent in our very own business as well. And just to quickly touch on our story, our business was so heavily involved in printed communications over the years. And all of a sudden, the country went into lockdown, and we had to very quickly re-engineer, redo everything, and learn very quickly some new systems to help us not only survive through the pandemic, but thrive, because our business has always been communication. And by adopting certain principles and looking at new means of segmenting audience bases, we managed to increase the engagement of all of our channels and all of our communications by over 400% in the last about 6 to 7 months. And we put together just a little bit of a checklist that you might be able to use within your own communities. And obviously each community is very specialized and all different, but we do adopt many of the same principles. So first thing that we would recommend is audience segmentation. So you have to know who your audience is. You have to know who your community members are. And everything from obviously age groups, interests, and communication preferences, these are a very good start. Because by segmenting your audience bases, you'll know how to best communicate with them. Another important aspect is building credibility and relationships through your communication. And as Byron was saying there on the chat group as well, and talking about video content, we have seen a great success using video content through communication. Video allows you to express a personality, build rapport through an emotional connection, and we're all people at the end of the day. And I believe that video is really the next step in bringing communities together and communicating effectively. It also allows you to grow a connection with the communication and show that management is actually also just people, you know, not just names on newsletters or on the levies at the end of the month. Very important was to adopt a holistic approach. So naturally, a good combination is your community apps, your portals, your digital newsletters, and you will know based on your profiling and research through those channels who is engaging with which part of those communications. But also very, very important to let it be understood which of these channels are official, and that they can be a two-way conversation. As both Adriaan and Liezl mentioned, you know, it's very important to let the community understand that they do have a voice, they are being heard, and this should effectively stop them from breaking off into those splinter groups because you're addressing these challenges or their complaints with you know, as being very important and almost immediately. Another big thing is relevancy, the relevancy of content. What content is of interest to your community members? Delivering, I would say it's very important to deliver great content of interest across the board through the apps, specifically for engagement. A combination of lifestyle content, investment content, community-based content, content which touches on all aspects of the property owner's life, community, assets, family, and the home environment. We know that this is a challenge to many of the estates, to many of the communities due to budgets and resources. You can get this content from us. Our content easily integrates via API with most of the apps, and we can easily share that with you. But we found that this to be a very effective way to drive additional engagement through your apps and portals. Response, of course, that's another part of the checklist. You have to respond immediately, professionally, proficiently, and just make sure that resident knows that they're being heard. And one of my main suggestions would be is use a professional team to strategize your internal communication for you. We understand not everybody has the privilege of having a specific communication officer or an HOA liaison. We can assist you with that, just help you set up the foundations, help you set up the communication and make that ease of distribution far easier for you, and then you can carry on and run it yourself. These would just be some of the fundamentals, Louise. I don't know if there's some specific questions that you'd like to go into.
Sure. So, and I think this is a question almost, and maybe Julia can put us on the gallery mode. This is almost like a question for everyone to a certain extent. And as I'm saying this, I've forgotten the question. No, I'm joking. So you, as you mentioned, you said it right in the beginning, and I think it's something it's true. We talk about integration of the different systems. We talk about integration of the different types of software. But what Jamie said at the beginning of the meeting is understanding your audience, the demographic of the individuals living within your home. And I know in my household alone, and there's just, you know, myself, my daughter, and the puppies, is every single one of us have a preferred channel in which we engage in. And that is just something, you know, something to consider. If you're surveying your homeowner, you will find that a certain homeowner is comfortable receiving a WhatsApp message, and someone else is more comfortable logging onto an app, and someone else is on their email all day, and somebody else prefers to have a newsletter delivered to their door. And maybe Jamie, you know, how important is it to understand that audience demographic? And
Absolutely.
Is it easy to create multiple channels?
Look, I think most communities already have multiple channels. I think it's about how you engage across those channels. The language is important. The content being relevant is very important as well. But, you know, by understanding your audience and segmenting your audience, first and foremost, this allows you to curate the right type of content, but also to ensure the acceptance of your communication in the first place. And that's quite important. It's important that also for like regular engagement, and that the audience keeps subscribing to the mediums. So whether it is closed WhatsApp groups or which are quite personal, whether it is your social media, which is there for promotion and information and building community sentiment, or your newsletters that you send out on a monthly basis, which looks at community values and events and spirit, community spirit as a whole. It's I think a holistic approach is very important. Which is also, it's very easy to do now as well, because you can integrate all of these communications and messagings from all of those different aspects straight back into your applications.
Is there, do you think there's a recommendation how frequently somebody should, how frequently an estate should communicate? I mean, there's so much noise out there, you know, advertising noise, messaging noise. How is someone who's busy and has a family and has got a lot going on supposed to know whether the message is important and you know, to pay attention to the HOA communication?
Well, I think first of all, if they see that communication with credibility, which they will, and they understand that the content being delivered is always relevant, they will see it as important. But of course, I mean, Liezl touched on it as well, like emergencies, obviously immediately on all platforms, and a WhatsApp group, which is very personal, would be fantastic for that. You know, specials, offers from the clubhouse, the restaurant, these are nice to go out on a bi-weekly basis, on a social media as well. Community news and updates, I think these are fantastic if you're delivering a newsletter or emailer content that go into things like achievements, opportunities, the positivity and general positive sentiment of the community. So nice to send that out on a monthly basis. You also don't want to bombard everybody. And of course, if your estate is still development progress is very important, and I would send that out on a monthly basis as well.
And I know we've sort of running out of time a little bit here, but my last question to you is, what do you see the relationship between effective internal communication within the estate and the brand of the estate, and how that then ultimately creates a perceived value for that estate, which ultimately affects the property prices, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a very, very important relationship between the two. Effective internal communication allows for a structured approach to the management of the community, and ultimately the management of community sentiment. Homeowners and residents are, you know, they're the main ambassadors to promote or not promote the estate, and their views are usually based on management. So by keeping residents informed, addressing needs as well as complaints immediately, and driving community through the communication, drives positive word of mouth, and positive word of mouth keeps property value high, because everybody wants to live in an effectively managed community. And you're generally talking to your friends about that. So it's very, very important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, and thank you to everybody else that has joined us, and those of the attendees that have stayed with us through to the end. As we've mentioned before, and as Jamie's mentioned in the chat, this is recorded, and we will share that recording with everyone. And so if you do want to see this as something to share with your trustees, or if you are looking to bring in different digital solutions into your community and you're looking for some ideas, please feel free to do that. This recording should be available early next week, and we will timestamp it so that you can see, so each presentation is clearly demarcated for easy access. So thank you so much to everybody. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you to the panel, and I apologize for going a little bit over. I'm going to work on this next year. Thanks so much, and take care.